Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedbuilding video, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Henford-on-Bagley, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 Cottage Living, and I'm going to be building a multi-purpose venue which you could run as either a cafe or a pub, depending on what you want to play with in your own game. So this lot is built on a 30 by 20 lot in the area of Henford-on-Bagley, which is called Finchwick or Finchwick Village. I'm not sure, it's either one of the two, but hopefully you know where I'm talking about. It's where the Finchwick Fair happens every single weekend, and if your Sims have ever participated in the fair, your Sims will always automatically load into this lot. Now this lot is like one of the other lots that we've got from City Living. You know, with the festivals like the Spice Festival or the Romance Festival, if your Sims travel to them festivals or to the fair, they'll have to automatically always load into a lot, even though the festivals and the fair happens within a neighbourhood and not within a lot itself. The game needs to load into a lot and not a neighbourhood. And so basically what I'm trying to say is, if your Sims have ever visited the fair, you would have been onto this community lot before in the past. But I wanted to sit down and build a brand new Gnome's Arm pub for my save file, because this building will be in my save. But I wanted to do it a little bit differently, and I decided to make it into a multi-purpose venue. And so you can either run this lot as a pub or a cafe, depending on what you want to play with and depending on what kind of day your Sim's having. I mean, if you think about it, a cafe and a pub aren't too different from one another, because it's somewhere where your Sims can go and, you know, have a sociable catch up with their friends, have a drink. I mean, they're different types of drinks, but you know, your Sims can still have a drink at both of these different types of venues. But I wanted to combine the two because ever since we've got Cottage Living, I've been running into this dilemma where I really wanted to include the Gnome's Arms in my save file. I felt like if you're going to have an English world in The Sims 4, there's got to be a pub, whether you like it or not. Pubs are part of the English culture, so it felt rude not to include a pub in my save file. So I knew that from the get-go, right, we're keeping the pub, but I really want to include a cafe as well in my save file. But the thing is, with this neighbourhood of Finchwick where the village is, I knew that I wanted the cafe to be here because, you know, it's like the town neighbourhood of the world. But there's only 4 different lots in this neighbourhood. There is 3 residential and then the Gnome's Arms. But I didn't want to sacrifice one of the residential lots in my save file. I wanted to use them as either, you know, like family homes or starter homes or whatnot. And so for the longest time, I was umming and ahhing about how I was going to do it. Was I going to make it into a cafe? Was I going to make it into a pub? Like, what was I going to do? And then earlier this week, I found this picture on Pinterest, which I'll find and I'll pop it on the screen now for you. And it just clicked in my mind. I saw this picture and I was like, that's it. That's what I need to build in my save file. I'm going to try and replicate it the best I can and make it into part pub and part cafe, because in the picture it looks like there's 2 different entrances into a building. And I mean, to be honest, I have been to a fair few amount of different pubs where they've got different entrances, whether it be at the front or on the side or back entrances or whatever. But as I was already umming and ahhing about what to do and how to build a multi-purpose venue that could be a pub and a cafe, it just seemed like it spoke to me, and I'm so happy I found that picture. I mean, I could have just had the pub and the cafe all in one room together, but then I was also thinking that, say if your Sims wanted to pop to the cafe on like a Saturday or a Sunday morning with all their mates, have a little bit of a catch up, maybe get a coffee and a pastry, your Sims aren't going to want to walk into the same room where Sims from the night before still haven't left and they still haven't been home, if you know what I mean. So I'm just so happy that I found this picture and I tried to replicate it the best that I can. We've also still put my own personal little touches on it, but I'm just so happy with the way this building turned out, so hopefully you guys like it as well. Also, it goes without saying, I mean, I say this for all of my builds anyway, but if you wanted to download this build and change it so maybe it's not a cafe on the other side and maybe you wanted to make it into a library or, I don't know, like a gym or anything else that you wanted to be honest, you could probably even make the other side into a house. So you see on the left hand side where the red shutters are, that's the area that the pub's going to be in. The area on the right hand side, I was about to say left, the area on the right hand side, the bit that I'm just playing around with terrain manipulation, this is where the cafe is going to be. Now the cafe I think is smaller on the downstairs but then bigger on the upstairs, and then the pub is bigger on the downstairs and then smaller on the upstairs. But I wanted to include as many pub games and just, you know, pub activities as possible. So in the pub we have the foosball table, we have the ping pong table, we have the darts board, we have a TV so Sims can go and watch, you know, like sports on the TV or something. I'm really gutted that we don't have a pool table in The Sims 4 yet, because in most English pubs you will find a pool table, and I'm really gutted, to be honest, that they didn't include a pool table in The Sims 4 Cottage Living, like in the build and buy. I mean, I may do in this build, because what I imagine would be a pool table is where I place the ping pong table. So, you know, like in the upstairs area, there's like a little board where your Sims can like note down who's winning and, you know, all the different points that people have or Sims have. But I really wish that they would have included like a pool table or like a snooker table. But thinking about it, I don't know how we would ever get one in the game, because I feel like the perfect opportunities to add them types of activities would be with either Cottage Living, because, you know, a pool is something that you find in a lot of English pubs, but also with Discover University, which is where we got the ping pong table, so I'm quite grateful for that. But I wanted to try and include as many different activities in both of the buildings as possible. In the cafe, it's a little bit harder, because in a cafe, realistically, if you think about any different type of cafe that you've been in, what do you have in there apart from a few decorations on the wall and, you know, the table in the middle and the cafe bar thing where your Sims can go and order themselves some food or some drinks or whatnot. So it was quite difficult to furnish the cafe portion, and if I'm being honest, this was probably one of the most difficult community lots that I've ever built. I built a fair amount of community lots, I would say, but this was definitely the hardest, just because I wanted it to feel decorated and cluttered and, you know, nicely put together. But on the same token, you don't want community lots to be overpopulated with furniture and clutter and whatnot, because Sims that you don't manage, Sims that, you know, are non-player Sims, they will just stand anywhere and everywhere. Say if your Sims are sitting down in the cafe area, yeah, they're having a catch up with their mate, maybe they're having a heart-to-heart, your neighbour's not going to care. They're just going to stand right next to you. And so you don't want to have too much stuff too close together. It was so difficult, and I found this lot so difficult, and I really like the way it turned out, but honestly I had a bit of a struggle when it came round to furnishing the upper portion of the cafe, because it was just such a big area and I was honestly just a little bit stuck what to do with it. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, the main building structure came together quite quickly. I find whenever I try to replicate something from a picture, I'm able to easily pick up like the shape of the building and the structure quite quickly. I don't know if anyone else feels like that and if anyone else is the same, but whenever I look at a picture, and I do it in real life as well, which I don't know if any other builders do this, but say if I'm looking at a building in real life, I will imagine how many squares that is or how many tiles it is in The Sims 4. I don't know if anyone else will do that, but I'm able sometimes to be able to do it quite quickly when I'm looking at a picture trying to replicate something. It was the landscaping that took up quite a lot of time. As you can see, this building is so just overgrown, overpopulated with landscaping, and at first I was thinking, oh, is it a bit too much? But I'm really happy that I stuck it out, because I think it came together so nicely. And in a way, I kind of feel like the landscaping makes the build. I feel like the landscaping kind of makes the build stand out from the rest of the world, although it still blends in, because I don't want it to stand out and stick out like a sore thumb, but I still feel like it blends into the world nicely. It kind of matches the surrounding neighbourhood, because this neighbourhood of Finchwick has got so many different flower beds around it. There's literally one area where your Sims, I'm pretty sure they can walk through it, and it's just filled with blue hydrangeas. So I mean, to have an over landscaped build in this area, I don't feel like it's too out of the ordinary, but I had a lot of fun landscaping it. I also got asked recently if I would do a landscaping tutorial, which I think if enough people would want to see me do a landscaping tutorial, I probably would do one. The only thing is though, in response to the comment that I got, I just said wing it, because currently I wouldn't know how to tell people how to landscape. But I think if I was to sit down and try and actually think about how I landscape and what the rhyme and reason is to it, I probably could be able to do a tutorial. But yeah, if enough people want to see that, then let me know, because I'll be more than happy to do it. And it won't just be me telling you to wing it, because that would probably what I'd do right now. If you said to me how to landscape, I'd say wing it. But I would actually do a proper tutorial if enough people want to see it. So yeah, let me know. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking a little bit more about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm just going around and adding some terrain paint, and I've currently just placed down some different signs around the different buildings. So in front of the pub, I wanted there to be the Gnome's arms, kind of like hanging decoration. Originally, I was not going to call the pub in my save file the Gnome's Arms, because I wanted to call it something a little bit more British, you know, like the Robin Hood pub or the Crown or the Swan, or, you know, I feel like everyone knows a pub called the Crown, or everyone knows a pub called the Robin Hood pub. They're just so typical names, and I've never known of a gnome's arms, and I was originally going to change it to be something more, stereotypical, but because we've got some different decorations in the game that kind of line up with the gnome's arms name, I decided that I am going to keep it as the gnome's arm. I don't know what I'm going to call it now in my save file, as there's going to be a caf attached to it. Maybe it'll be the gnome's arms pubs and tea room. Maybe that's what I'll end up calling it. I have absolutely no idea currently, but on the side I wanted to include some places where your Sims can place down their bikes. I know that you technically can't have a cycling club or like a bike riding club, but I would love if your Sims could have like a group of friends and they could go for bike rides with one another, because when I was decorating the side I was thinking back to maybe your Sims are meeting up with their mates on like a Sunday morning or something, and they want to go have a small little bike ride and then pop to the tea room, put their bike outside and go and grab a cup of coffee and maybe a slice of cake. I really liked the idea, and it also kind of reminds me of somewhere that's quite close to me, and so it was kind of like a little personal touch, and I just really liked it. I thought it was really cute. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on onto the side of the building where I've started decorating the pub garden. Now originally when I first came into the build, I didn't know if I was going to be able to have a pub garden, because originally I was thinking about putting it at the back of the building rather onto the side, but then the way that the building kind of panned out, there wasn't really enough room at the back, and so it kind of filled in the empty space that was on the side quite nicely, because where I was trying to replicate something in the game, I was trying to make it as accurate as possible with the tiles, and then that made it so it didn't fill up the whole 30 by 20. It kind of was a 20 by 20 building, and so it was kind of like this nice little space on the side, and I decided to make it into a pub garden. I mean, if it's a heat wave in your Sims games, you could just pop to the gnome's arms and tea rooms and sit outside and have some pub food, have some, I don't know, sausage and mash or Yorkshire puddings or something, which, by the way, I don't think I've ever had a Yorkshire pudding in a pub. But then again, I think Yorkshire puddings are more for people that live up north, and I don't live in the north, so maybe that's what it is. But anyway, as you can see, I'm just going around the exterior of the build and just finishing it up. I found these red planters in the live edit menu, and you would have seen there is some in the neighbourhood as well, and I wanted the lot to kind of blend in. I didn't want it to stand out too much, and so I decided to place some of them on the side. But now, as you can see, I've now finally moved on into the inside of this community lot. Now you might be thinking, why have you used that wallpaper? That is not a very nice wallpaper. There is a reasoning behind it. Now, if you ever go into, well, in my experience anyway, if I was to ever go into any English pub, there's always going to be some really old, just normally manky wallpaper, and quite often the wallpaper in the pubs in England are older than the actual owner, and so I've really wanted to replicate that into this build as well. I could have used the one that we got from Cottage Living, because we got some really beautiful swatches of some wallpaper, but to be honest, it looked a bit too nice for a pub. I was trying to make this feel as realistic as possible, and all the pubs that I've ever been in, they've always got this old wallpaper. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, the wallpaper is older than the owner itself, and so I really wanted to try and replicate it, and so I used this base game wallpaper. I don't think, and hand on my heart, I don't think I've ever used this wallpaper before in my life, and I don't think I would ever use it again. But then saying that, you can never say never, because I've used it in this build, but it just worked out so perfectly. And if you've ever been into an English pub, you've got to agree with me, this is the kind of wallpaper that you would see in an English pub. I was going to go for a stone, like brick wallpaper, because I'm pretty sure the pub that was originally here had like stone or brick for the inside wallpaper in, but it just didn't feel as English to me, and so what I decided to do is I decided to put stone on one wall where the bar is. Now the bar, the one that I ended up using, was from Discover University, and then the kind of things I merged into the wall at the back are from Get Together. The 2/3 packs that I use the most in furnishing the inside of this build would be Get Together, Discover University and Cottage Living, because they've got very, like bar-like English items, especially Get Together. Get Together I use so much within this build. Just that wall decoration that I've placed behind the side table alone, I must have used probably like 3 or 4 times within the build. I used it both in the cafe and then in the pub, but it's got different swatches of what's on the chalkboard, so it doesn't look like it's the same thing over and over again. It has got different swatches. There's one with like beer on, there's one with like noughts and crosses, there's one that looks like it's keeping a score or something. It just, Get Together worked really well in this build. But now you can see I've moved on to the next room, which I'm going to class as the pub office. Now originally, and you might have seen, I did just quickly change the wallpapers, but originally when I was going in and doing the floor plan, this was going to be a bathroom. I underestimated how big of a bathroom it would have been, and especially where it's going to be in a pub, you're not going to have your bathtub, you're not going to have your shower, you're going to have a toilet and a sink, maybe a mirror if you're lucky. And so originally I placed it down as a bathroom. I started decorating it and I was thinking, hang on, this is ridiculous. And so I decided to delete that and make it into an office space for the pub owners to do all their ordering for all the different ingredients that they need for all the different drinks. And I don't know, I just decided to make it into an office space for your Sims. Now I would recommend, if you don't want your Sims to use the computer, to either delete the computer, or I don't know if you can do it on community lock computers, but there is now a function within the game where you can change the computer settings so it changes who can use the computer and who can't. Honestly, absolute lifesaver when you invite your Sims friends round, maybe for a catch-up or something, because 9 times out of 10, instead of actually going and talking to your Sim, they head straight for the computer. But now we've got the security setting on the computer, that is such a big life changer. But anyway, moving on from that and actually moving on to the upstairs portion of the build. So as you can see, I just quickly did 2 of the bathrooms. They were exactly the same. I just did one and then copied and pasted it over. They're the only bathrooms that you're going to see me do in this build, because it's pretty much the exact same thing, and it's the same for all my residential builds as well. I only show the furnishing of one bathroom. That bathroom that I just showed just happened to be quite a small, short and sweet kind of bathroom, so that's why I kept in the furnishing of me copying and pasting it over. But yeah, normally I only show the furnishing for one bathroom anyway. But up here, as you can see, I've just placed the little ping pong table in kind of like its own section of the room. Now one thing that I really wanted to do, and honestly, I was a bit gutted that I couldn't do it, and you might have noticed me trying to attempt it when I was doing the floor plan, but I really wanted to have some wooden beams and some pillars on the upstairs portion. But you can't do it if you've got roof, or like a bit of the roof going into the building, if that makes sense, because the roof will then start to show, and you can try and play around with it and try and get it so it doesn't show, but a lot of the times there will still be a little bit of the roof trim coming through into the wallpaper, and that's not very realistic, and I like my builds to be as realistic as possible. And so I decided to not include any of the beams. If you wanted to download this build and you don't mind that happening, I would highly recommend adding some beams into it, because I imagine that this pub is really old, and so with older buildings quite often you do find some wooden beams kind of being like the support system for the build. But as you would have seen, I did just finish off the pub section of this community. So like in there ended up being the foosball table, the ping pong table like I mentioned, as well as the dart table, and then just like a nice little seating area so your Sims can maybe go up there with their mates or whatnot. But now, as you can see, I've moved on to the next section, which is the cafe. By the way, if you can now start to notice that my voice is getting a little bit raspy and a little bit croaky, it's because, and I thought I could try and get away with it, this voiceover, but maybe not, because I feel like my voice is starting to go a bit. But I had my graduation yesterday, and I just screamed very loud when my friends walked across the stage, and now I practically lost my voice, and I thought I could get away with it with doing a voiceover, and I thought you might not be able to notice, but where I've been speaking it just consistently, I feel like you're going to start to notice now. So if you do pick up on it, I'm really sorry. My voice will be back to normal next week. It's just this week, you only get to see your friends graduate once. Well, actually no, if they do a master's then maybe twice, but for the most part. I also graduated as well, by the way. I'm officially a graduate, but that is completely besides the point and completely off subject. But anyway, you can see I've now moved on into the next section, which is the cafe section. So in here, there is a lot of get-together. So we've got cafes with get-together anyway. Cafes are a community that came with the get-together expansion pack. And so, as you would imagine, there is quite a lot of cafe-related items within that pack. So we have a little stand that's got like muffins and pastries in. Then we've also got the proper like little coffee maker, like the fancy stuff that you see in like Starbucks and Costa and whatnot. And then around the downstairs, I just tried to place down a bunch of different tables and chairs to kind of make it look like maybe your Sims can come in here and maybe get like not even just a coffee and a bit of cake, but maybe they could come in here and get like a panini or a toasty or something. Something like a lot of cafes would do, I find anyway. When you want to go to a cafe, you can normally get a panini or a cheese and ham sandwich or something like that. And so I imagine that your Sims could probably do that in this building as well. over here I didn't know what to do with this little back entrance area, and so you know I was talking about the cyclists and like having all their bikes outside. I decided to make it into a bit of a room that they could walk through after they've laid their bikes out outside. I did think about placing down some shoes, but then the more that I thought about it, I thought it'd be a bit weird in a community lot, so I decided to leave it. But now you can see I'm just finishing up this room, and I've now moved on to the last section, which is the upstairs portion of the cafe. Now originally I was thinking that I was going to have a sofa in front of the fireplace and, you know, have like a few nice armchairs. You seem to come up here with like a warm drink of some sort and, you know, like just sit by the fire. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, maybe they just want somewhere to just sit down, and so I decided to just make it a massive space with loads of different tables and chairs. And then in the corner I wanted this lot to be pet friendly and child friendly as well, so as well as outside where there's some, you know, like toy boxes and things that children can play with, in case it's raining, on the inside on the upstairs portion of the cafe there is also a doll's house, a little teddy bear, as well as a toy box. And then outside, and then I think downstairs in the cafe, I also place some food bowls as well for dogs and cats, because I imagine that it is a dog friendly place where your Sims could come maybe after a dog walk or something like that. But anyway guys, I am actually going to end this voiceover right here, so as always you can download this build via the gallery. My origin ID is JessicapieYT, or you could search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in my next Sims 4 speed building video. Bye guys.